Hi, this is Sion, and this is Deep Dive with Seoul Therapy. I've released a new EP called Aenzin, and sonically, it's a mixture of different genres, but it's again completely different from everything I've done to this point. It's a mixture of hyperpop, shoegaze, indie rock, jazz again, of course. Like I've implemented elements of video game music. It's a weird hybrid thing. I'm sure some of you guys won't like it, but I think some of you guys might love it. And I love it. This is, again, my best work to date, I think. Lyrically, this album talks about different aspects of life as a Gen Z person and struggles. It's also kind of a extension, a sequel to the track Karoshi on Social Avoidance, where I talked about a friend passing away, committing suicide because of the pressures the society builds on us. Now, this album kind of also talks about how I feel about the world right now, how I empathize with him. Back then I was talking about how I couldn't understand him, and now it's more like, oh, I get it now. I get why you did so. And yeah, it's kind of a depressing album. I think that the lyrics are very depressive and the sound is really like hyperpop and quirky, makes it even more special to me. Yeah. The first track of the EP is Eigensinn. It's a fully instrumental track. I just wanted to introduce the listener to the soundscape of the album, what I wanted to go for in this album. So I started off right away with a really loud jazz breakbeat part, and I drew different inspirations from various video game music, such as this Jet Set Radio Sega game, which has also these breakbeat inspirations, and also definitely Mario Kart, one of my favorite games ever. And I intentionally tried to make the middle part of the song sound like a Rainbow Road track of Mario Kart. Yeah, I hope you guys like this one. The second track of the EP is Celeste. The title I drew from a video game, an indie game, which is called Celeste. It's like a platformer where the protagonist climbs a mountain, and in the process of that, she always fights with her inner self. And it's like a really touching story about depression and self-worth. And I wanted to take a more depressive twist on that lyrically, so it doesn't go in the hopeful direction, I would say, as my lyrics always do. Yeah, and sonically it's a mixture of shoegaze and hyperpop again, glitch pop. The song starts off with like some organic piano and then gradually drives into this like really saturated rock part. I think it's an interesting one. I feel like this one was also like the first song I wrote for the EP. I was kind of figuring out all this stuff I wanted to do on this album, so it feels still very raw compared to the other songs, but that's what makes it special, I feel like also. Yeah. The next track is Hold On. Genre-wise, it's again a mixture of hyperpop, like also some hip-hop elements. It has like rage elements. I've listened to a lot of Drain Gang, if you're familiar with them. They are like a hip-hop. I don't know if you could say like fully hip-hop group, but it's a collective where they make really like interesting hip-hop hybrid music. I've listened to a lot of their music and have drawn inspiration from them. I just wanted to make a banger for this track. First, when I started this song, it was just the verse with the guitar, and then I wanted to make a hyperpop song all of a sudden, so that's why the chorus suddenly goes into this UK bass style, like Sophie style hyperpop soundscape. And then it goes into like rap, trap kind of drums, and then it drives into this like Japanese pop style breakdown, and then it builds up into this last drop, which is like complex tro, Skrillex, like bro step type. It's a really weird song. It's a journey, I would say. I love it. It's one of my favorite tracks on the album, I would say. Avoid 2 is the most ambitious track, I would say, on the album. I said Hold On was a journey, but I would say Avoid 2 like steps up even more on that aspect. Like genre-wise, it has everything I listened to the past like 3-4 months, I think. I also made this song really quickly. It took me like, I don't know, 1 week to make this song. I just had so much fun like experimenting with different genres. Like it starts off with this ambient soundscape, and then it goes into like a 2010 like EDM kind of environment, and then it drives into this rage trap music, then it goes into hot style EDM, and then it builds up into the finale, which is like a halftime, really clunky kind of like, the beat is really off-grid, but it's gritty. And yeah, I had so much fun experimenting with this. Lyrically, as you can tell, it's like a sequel to Avoid. When in Avoid 1, I talked about how I struggle with social interactions, how I'm scared of these interactions. Now it's more like exhaustion and like anger towards it, how fake some social interactions can be, and that I just want to shut down completely. I don't want to engage with you. It's kind of a toxic song, I would say. I feel like track 5, Homes, is the most easy to listen one, but still has these hyperpop elements, but it draws inspirations from mostly pop, I would say, pop rock. I listen to a lot of Porter Robinson. I think everyone can tell on this song, like it has these chord progressions that Porter Robinson uses a lot. Also the drums, I feel like. But then in verse 2, starting from verse 2, it like switches into a more indie rock direction, and then switches back into hyperpop, where the drums punch in with the like 4 to the floor. I just like to make pop as well, but I just wanted to give like pop a twist of my own. And lyrically, it talks about like the relationship between artists or like stars with their fans. Like artists are always really grateful for their fan base, but also it can kind of eat them up. Like, you know, we always try to show our best side. Like when we upload on social media, we always show like our most beautiful moments, but we never show how much we're struggling sometimes. Sharing our moments, our best moments to you and my music is like a shelter for my fan base. So people listening to my music always tell me like, oh, your music is such a relief for me. Your music is so beautiful. That's the best side of me. I'm really happy that my fans can reside in my music and feel like comfort in that, but it also feels like I'm giving away homes to my fans. And while I'm sometimes feeling like I'm a bit isolated without having a home really, maybe it also is connected to that I came to Korea at a very young age. Yeah, that might be the reason. It's no offense again, it's my fan base again. It's just like an observation I had. Wait, that was a weird ending. The 6th track, Boroka. The title I drew from a Japanese kids animation, which is called Midnight Horror School. There's this character called Boroka, which is a little umbrella, and it has like a special ability. Whenever it cries, it summons a rain cloud. This personal rain cloud thing is like a really often reoccurring trope in animations, and I thought, why not make a song with it? Whenever I'm feeling low, I feel like wherever I go, it's a sad place, and it just felt like to me a little rain cloud is following me everywhere. The entire song talks about this phenomenon of a rain cloud following me everywhere. Even at parties, when I'm sad, that place can be flooded with rain, just like Baroka does. And yeah, it's not too deep, I feel like, but it's just a little cute metaphor, I feel like. And genre-wise, it's the track that is the least hyperpop energy. It's more like rock, shoegaze again. But I feel like as a finale, it works really well. Just rounding off this really saturated sound field with a more organic approach makes really much sense to me. I mean, in Social Avoidance, I already took inspiration from hyperpop, I think, but only subtly. It wasn't supposed to be a fully fledged hyperpop album. It was more like a bridge between Love Live era and this Eigensinn era. Now that I tried to make a more authentic hyperpop album, I really had to search up a lot of tutorials on YouTube because it's a completely different genre. It's also very maximalist. Love Live, I've had if you're familiar with Ableton or FL Studio, I've had only on average maybe 20 tracks per track. On this album, I've had at least 130, and I know that a lot of hyperpop musicians have even more tracks than that. I've felt how much of a hassle it is to work in the DAW. Thankfully, I've changed my PC during Social Avoidance, so it didn't struggle too much. But if I had to do it on my old laptop, I think it couldn't have done it. So yeah, that was the big hassle. I think I had both a vision and also a lot of inspirations. I've said in some interviews that during Love and Live, I didn't really think about what kind of music I want to make. Back then, I was just figuring out what pop music is in the first place. Just when I made Social Avoidance, I started to think about what music I really like to listen to. During that time, I listened to a lot of Japanese musicians, like Japanese underground, hip-hop, hyperpop musicians, such as an artist group called Peter Parker 69. They're really amazing musicians, and I've just seen them making these really weird but beautiful soundscapes with their music, and was like, okay, this is what I want to go for. And then I started digging more hyperpop music outside of Japan, British music, UK-based deconstructed club, such genres. I've just slowly made myself familiar with the genre. But also, I had a vision in terms I want to make something that is completely me. I want to make music that I want to listen to. So that was kind of the vision behind it, I would say. The hardest song to make on the album was... they were all hard to make. I would say the hardest song to make on the album was Celeste, because it was the first song I made for the album and the first song that was supposed to be hyperpop. So I was still figuring out how to make hyperpop in the first place. So it took me 2 months figuring out different ways to make sounds. Once I figured out this sauce, I could apply it to different songs, The easiest song because of that was Avoid 2. I think it was the last song I made for the album. It's completely hyperpop. It doesn't have any organic instruments in it. So I just had to apply all the things that I've gathered while making the album into one completely outgoing song. It sounds the most complex, but it was the most easy to make, I think. As an artist signed to a record label, you have deadlines. This is a confession. I had like a huge burnout after social avoidance. I wasn't sure where to even begin. I felt like I've hit a limit with social avoidance. I didn't know where to draw inspiration from anymore. When I dropped social avoidance until like January, I feel like I didn't make any music. New Year came, and then I just decided I want to listen to some music. Just don't make music, but just listen to music. And that's when I really started to think about what music I really like to listen to. And then I found like Peter Parker 69 and all these Japanese cool musicians. And then I took a trip to Japan just to like free my mind a little bit. After I came back from Japan, I think it was like around February, I started making Celeste. This is a tough one. I really like each song for a different reason. Homes, I like because it has this huge pop appeal, and I love pop music. I love Hold On because it's such a banger. I love Avoid 2 because of the sound design explorations I was allowed to do on this track. I would say these three are my favorite tracks. To pick one, Avoid 2, because I just had so much fun making this song. I think Avoid 2 almost didn't make the final cut. As I said, that was the last song I worked on. As an artist, again, signed to a record label, you always have this pressure of like, you have to have this much songs on an EP, and then, but I don't have that much inspiration. And I was like, okay, I need to make a song. Where do I even begin? And then I was like, okay, let's make a song that's like kind of a testament to everything I've learned throughout the journey. And yeah, then I started just like blasting loud sounds in Ableton. If I didn't have this pressure from me being signed to a label, I don't think I would have made this song. There is no chronological order. You just can listen to it as you want, but sonically, I've intended this album to be listened through in chronological order, just because I feel like it makes the most sense in this order. Just starting off with this instrumental track Eigensinn that introduces you into the soundscape of Eigensinn. It just makes sense to me, but I won't force you. That's a good question, but because that's exactly how I work when making an album. Like, I make one song and then I build off of that. I try to think, if a song comes after this one and before this one, what would be the best scenario for a listener to listen to it? So I made Celeste and I was like, okay, this would make sense as a second song, and I want to have the intro song. So I made Eigensinn, and then I want to have a more like traditional hyperpop type of song. So that's why I made Hold On. And I always make music that way, I feel like. I make one song and then I try to figure out what soundscape would make sense like before and after that song. The best would be to come to one of my shows and just like feel the vibe with the crowd and me going crazy. If you don't like to do that, then I would suggest being with friends and just blasting it on some good Bluetooth speakers. I just want you to have fun while listening to these really depressive emo lyrics. Yeah, that's what I intended you to do. First of all, I really like playing games. I like playing a lot of indie games, such as Celeste. But also, one of my favorite games ever is Undertale. It's also here installed on my computer. I always play it whenever I'm bored. And the graphics kind of reminded me of Undertale. Also, like the color of the living room. Of course, I've played all the levels. The last one, the stage of Furoka, it was a nightmare. I know the controls are a bit slippery. That's just because of the limitations of the program the team used. It makes for fun experience when sometimes when like the controls and the engine isn't too perfect. Sometimes if a game is scrappy, it's more fun because you tend to fuck up a lot of the times and rage quit and everything, you know? I've played it like with some friends here and it's much more fun that way because like everyone's reacting like, oh, you failed, and yeah, you know, it's fun. Yeah. As you guys may know, I'm going on tour in December, Europe. I'm really excited to see you guys again. This time it's gonna be more in the party direction. I'm planning to try to remix as many like past songs of myself as much as possible. And before the tour, I also want to release maybe a single or a double single. I don't know. I want to have as many like fun time bangers. I'm also planning on making some collaborative music with some hyperpop musicians out there, the mentioned Japanese musicians, and also some musicians I've got to know like working in this hyperpop field. Yeah, that's my plan so far. Hold on and avoid two. I've already performed them like with hypnosis therapy because they invited me to a performance of them. They allowed me to perform like 2 tracks of my EP before it got released, of course, and it was so much fun. We even had a little mini mosh pit there. It was so much fun, and I don't expect us to have like a mosh pit, but you'll have to wear some comfortable shoes so you can jump. All right, I expect you to be ready. This was Sion, and thank you for tuning in to my deep dive with Seoul Therapy. I hope you guys listened to my EP Eigensinn already, but if you haven't, what are you doing? Go and listen to it. Tell me what you think about it. Like, I don't know, just DM me or write it in the comments. I'll be there. Thank you so much. Goodbye.